This is the Flea Market 2014 recap. So overall, I think Super Nintendo would be the console with the highest number of titles I picked up. Probably the best that I found was Power Rangers the movie, which is a pretty solid Natsumi beat 'em up. A lot of these Super Nintendo titles are duds. NBA Jam, it's a good time. What else? Super Off-Road. That Major League Baseball Players Association baseball complete. Even though it's a sports game, it's hard to pass up a complete Super Nintendo game since the boxes are almost always trashed. Also, a fair amount of Genesis titles. I think in general, some higher quality titles. Toe Jam and Earl, Panic on Funkotron. I actually picked up The Justifier and Lethal Enforcers separately. But it was nice because I don't have the Justifier gun for Super Nintendo. I also got some complete Genesis games. Cliffhanger's surprisingly decent. Beat 'em up. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, cart only. It's a fun puzzle game. Fewer Nintendo titles, but some good ones. That copy of Vegas Dream is sealed, which was awesome, because I don't have any other sealed Nintendo games. It's $3, and it was on a table with just a bunch of junk. No other video games, so I'm surprised that that one survived, but it's got a good home now. Other than that, I picked up another copy of Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu. The copy I had was some label damage. A second copy of Castlevania, because it came with the manual and it was cheap. And I actually ended up keeping both of them because the board is different. I don't know if it was like a reissue title, but I thought that was kind of interesting. So that might eventually become trade-in fodder. Just two Master System games, Fantasy Zone 2, Penguin Land, both complete. Most of the 7800 titles I already have, except for Ace of Aces. Donkey Kong, my copy, had some label damage, and I think it was only $1. Sealed Galaga, Complete Centipede. Those were part of a package deal with a 7800 console. A bunch of ColecoVision games. Mr. Do, Time Pilot, Burger Time. Everything else kind of crappy. 5200 games, including Space Shuttle Simulator, which is also on Nintendo, but I do not have. Mario Brothers. Some 2600 games, which mostly I'm interested in unusual cartridges, like this Artillery Duel game, which is terrible, but the cartridge is shaped weird. This Tapeworm. I think the Spectravision games were all mail order only. So whenever I see weirdo cartridges like this, or later in the life of the system, this was 82. I like to pick those up. Pole Position for Atari 800. Found the 2600 manual. That was neat, just that it survived, separate from the system itself. A boxed system changer for Intellivision Model 2, which is not compatible with the Model 1. I guess back in the 80s, you could send your Intellivision to a service center and they would do some sort of hardware modification, which I might end up doing at some point if I really want to play Atari games on my Intellivision. Got the voice modulator, which came with a bundle of a television system I wasn't able to get to work. Video output seems messed up. Also, a 2600 console, a ton of Intellivision games, and everything was $25. So, even though the consoles didn't work, I was happy about those finds. And some unusual titles like He-Man, 2 of the Tron games, Dungeons and Dragons, which I think the cover art is probably the coolest thing about this game, but I haven't really given it a chance. I found this Super Nintendo deck only for $5, which is an awesome find. It's pretty dirty, but it cleaned up nicely. This GameCube came without a controller for $3, but I ended up finding one for $1. So I now have 3 GameCubes, which is more than I need, but it's hard to pass up a good deal when you see it. This GameCube came with the Game Boy Advance player and the disc, 4 Nintendo controllers, and a couple memory cards, all for $20, I think, which it's worth more than that just for the controllers to me. Other than that, some decent Nintendo 64 titles. Fighting Force 64 surprised me. I didn't expect much from it, but it's actually pretty fun. Pokemon Puzzle League is basically Tetris Attack with Pokemon characters. A bunch of controller S's, which is more than I really need, but if they're $1 or $2, it's hard to pass up. This Game Gear game I bought just because it was really weird looking, and it's a puzzle game. I haven't really played it, but you don't see Game Gear stuff too often. Got a ton of Game Boy games. Zelda Link's Awakening DX. A bunch of these titles I got as part of a package deal. Somebody was selling off their Game Boy from they were a kid. A lot of quality titles. Final Fantasy Legend, Gargoyle's Quest, Ninja Turtles, Metroid 2, Battletoads, Balloon Kid. So it was a great deal. Donkey Kong 64 box. They actually got the box and the game separately. Rise of the Dragons, probably the only Sega CD game worth mentioning. Some PlayStation games. Philosoma is really the only one I'm excited about. Disc-only Dynamite Cop on Dreamcast. A complete Shenmue 2 for $3. I already had it boxed, but no manual, and the case was a DVD case that someone had replaced the original with. Luigi's Mansion's another one I picked up boxed and ended up finding the manual a couple weeks later. I guess that's pretty much it. I didn't do a total as far as what I spent, which I'm sure was a lot, but you know, whatever. Don't judge me.